Hello and welcome to Green Pass Gaming's Coffee Morning Podcast with me, your host Flap, and as you can see we've got Scott SX2 along with us for the ride. Just us two this morning, one half of the GPG crew. Good morning, Scott. How the devil are you, my friend? Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Hold on. Is that better? Hold
That's
on. Technical
much better.
issues.
There we
Start
go.
off, I fix it. Apologies. I was typing in chat and I muted the mic to stop any background noise. But doing well, mate. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the show this morning. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Sunday,
We've got three topics to get through.
I've got my cuppa.
Oh, nice.
I hope
Yeah,
you've
me
got
too.
I hope you've got a coffee.
So we're leaving up to
Very
the
nice.
coffee morning,
Very
mate.
nice. So, yeah.
So it's a nice sunny
Yeah, looking
day.
forward to it, mate.
Nice sunny day in the UK. It's 10 a.m. in the morning, so good morning if you're tuning in live, and perhaps good morning, good afternoon, or good evening if you're watching after the event. Yeah, got a good show lined up for today. We did our show Thursday. Unfortunately, YouTube screwed things up a little bit. They marked a lot of content creators' videos as private for no particular reason, which kind of damaged our numbers slightly, which was mostly frustrating. So we're back today. We're here with a show. If you haven't checked out Thursday's show, definitely check that. It's got Pong Soul on there. We've covered some really good topics and some really sort of detailed and in-depth questions, I think, came out of that one as well. So go and check that out if you haven't already. You've got three topics for today, probably about an hour's show. And the first topic of today is will EA be acquired? It looks like they're looking to be acquired or at least want to merge with someone. In this ever-changing world that we live in with regards to game studios and publishing. So we'll be delving into that one. Xbox doing very well in Japan. For the first time since 2014, I believe it is, Xbox outsold the PS5 in Japan, or outsold PlayStation in Japan. And topic 3, Sony's Call of Duty marketing rights seems to be a big question mark around that, and we'll be delving into that. But before we do, chat, anyone listening, thank you for being here. Pinging questions. If there's anything you want to ask us, just let us know. Get involved. But Scott, if you're okay, mate, we'll get straight on with topic 1.
Yeah.
Right, EA to be acquired, or they want to merge. They recently pursued a merger, apparently, with NBC Universal. But also held potential acquisition talks with Disney, Apple, Amazon, and a few other companies, apparently. And it doesn't look like that's come to anything yet. This is according to a new report by Puck. But while there isn't a deal currently in the works, apparently it sounds like they're not going to give up anytime soon, and they're still looking to be either acquired or merged with someone. So, yeah, was this a bit of a surprise, Scott? Because you actually posted this topic in our Discord channel, I believe. Shameless plug, link in the description below to our Discord channel. But
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a surprise because I kind of had EA as maybe one of those publishers that would maybe look to acquire smaller studios themselves. Obviously, they only purchased Codemasters last year, I believe it was.
yeah, apparently they spent $5 billion acquiring people over the last 12 months, apparently. So they've grown exponentially in the last 12 months.
But at the same time, we've obviously got companies like Bungie, Activision Blizzard being acquired, Ubisoft seemingly putting themselves up for sale. You've got Embracer buying up everything and anything. So maybe from that perspective, it doesn't come as that much of a surprise, really. It just looks like there is a significant amount of consolidation in the industry at the moment. And EA are maybe looking at particularly the Activision Blizzard deal with Microsoft and thinking, hey, we want some of that money because these are huge sums of money that are likely to be involved here. And it just seems the timing is right for a lot of these companies. If you're looking to be acquired or acquire, then it seems to be right now is the time for it. So, I guess both surprised and not really surprised when you actually think about it, I think.
I think from an acquisitions point of view, I think it would seem to make kind of more sense to be acquired than to merge with someone, I think. And I guess obviously, there's lots of question marks about, well, who could acquire them? And there's some obvious answers and probably some slightly less obvious answers. I think we've tackled this before, haven't we? That we're not convinced someone like Xbox would actually want to approach this whilst the Activision Blizzard deal is still going through, I guess. Only because they wouldn't want to jeopardize that deal. And I remember we spoke to Luke Steele quite a long while ago now about monopolies and stuff. I think this was was this around Activision Blizzard? I think it was around that sort of monopoly side of things. And and he said, he doesn't think that the market is in that place where the monopolies would get involved. But actually, if Xbox were to start acquiring someone like EA as well, perhaps that is a question that would need to be answered on some level. Sony have obviously got their Bungie deal going through, like you say. Embracer have just recently made a purchase. It's a very volatile time at the moment.
It is, but I think the parties they seemingly courted for this merger / acquisition, I think are deliberate. First of all, these are just gigantic corporations that could afford it. I think when the news broke, I had a look, and I think the market cap on EA at the time was about $35 billion. So you could probably imagine the type of money involved in any sort of acquisition and merger of a company of that size, and that really limits the number of companies that could do it. And as you say, Microsoft are probably a little tied up, even if they were interested. And I think we'll probably go into, would they, or will they, won't they, or would they be interested if they could? I'm sure we'll get into that, but obviously Microsoft are a little tied up with one other acquisition, which is obviously gigantic, and that probably puts them in a position where even if they were interested, they can't. And if they, I imagine, and I'm basing this purely on nothing but my own gut feeling, is if the Activision Blizzard deal does go through, and then they try to acquire a company the size of EA, I genuinely think that is the time when maybe they would have issues actually getting those things approved by the what the company's called in the States again. Apologies.
Is it the FDA? Well, no, we need Luke for that. I mean, there's plenty of people, and to be honest, it's the European market.
The FTC, sorry.
But
or the also, Department of Justice. So
it's also EU as well. You remember the monopolies and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, I guess so. Again, that kind of limits who it is, because I imagine PlayStation might have a similar issue, and there's maybe, and I don't know this for certain, but maybe EA would probably be out of Sony's price range. Just speculating.
Well, that's a good point, because that brings me on to the question: how much do you think they could go for? And this is one for chat. If EA were to be acquired, how much do you think they'd be sold for? What do you reckon, Scott? How much would you buy them for?
Not an awful lot, to be perfectly honest. I don't get an awful lot from EA these days. But like I say, market cap 35 billion. Is it 50 billion? Is what it'll take to get that through. Obviously, 50. There'll probably have to be a healthy premium on it. Yeah, I mean, when you look at these acquisitions go through, there tends to be a significant premium on the share price based on market cap. So. Yeah, maybe 50, 55 billion, something like that, which is just an absolutely astronomical amount of money to even consider. And while I'm sure, Sony could raise those funds if they wanted, I imagine similar to the Take-Two acquisition of Zynga, there would probably have to be some external funding to actually do that. I'm not too sure if they've got just 50 billion sat in the bank. Yeah. Obviously, there are very, very few companies that do. Microsoft are one of them, but like I say, I think they would struggle to get it through if the Activision Blizzard deal is acquired. And yeah, Stubbs just mentions there the EU Commission is obviously a little bit harder on these companies than the likes of the FTC and the DOJ. But it really just limits who could potentially be interested. And we've had Amazon, Apple. Was Google mentioned, or was it Amazon, Apple, Disney, NBC?
NBC Universal, Apple, Disney, Amazon, and it says others as well, so we don't really know who else. But
well, I imagine they're kind of courting themselves to the highest bidder, aren't they? They're probably welcoming interest from all companies, and I'm sure if a year out there sort of touting themselves like that, I'm sure they're at least taking a look. I think it would probably be a little silly if they didn't at least take a look and consider it, but I imagine they probably look at that sort of thing and say, nah, not for us, or it's likely to cause us headaches. And like I say, we'll probably get into it, but then it's a case of, right, what do Microsoft and Xbox get out of that acquisition if they were to do it? So,
well, let's do that now. And there is another question I want to come back to, actually, but do you think EA are quite the hot proposition they once were? I know we can talk about the sort of the golden years of EA or whatever, but they're losing their Star Wars license as of next year. Believe it or not, they're losing their FIFA license as of next year as well. We know what happened with Battlefield 2042 background. Yeah, are they as hot a proposition as they once were, do you think?
Well, you're right. You obviously list some examples there. We obviously don't know what a FIFA without the FIFA license performs like. I think there's going to be one more FIFA this year with the license, and then it's next year it loses it. The interesting thing is between now and then, does another company get that FIFA license and release
Well,
a game to compete with it?
Pro Evo want something like that? Konami.
I don't think Konami would be interested, but maybe another company comes in like a Take Two, or who obviously are invested in sports games. Maybe they come along. FIFA will probably still have issues getting $1 billion for the rights, like apparently they wanted for EA, I imagine. But if another competitor comes along with the FIFA name, how does that impact those sales? Somebody goes to the store, they say FIFA, they see EA Sports FC. Or a lot of people just going to pick up the one with the name that they've known for 20, 30 years now.
FIFA is synonymous with EA, isn't it, for that title? So, like you say, if someone walks into a game shop and says, "I want the FIFA," it's an odd one, isn't it? It must have some sort of impact.
Yeah, you would think so, but like I say, I think it depends entirely on whether there's somebody else that comes in the market with a FIFA game. Someone might not. It might just be EA Sports FC and eFootball, and that's it. And then I guess at that point it's maybe a little bit more obvious because you've got the EA Sports logo or branding on there. That's maybe a little bit more familiar. But if somebody else does come in and sneak in there with the FIFA title, then that does make it a little bit interesting. You mentioned Battlefield. What a mess that is. Probably the worst critically received Battlefield ever. It's fair to say that's absolutely bombed.
EA. Where was it they put there? They left it actually a list of their active games in a financial briefing for Q4 of the fiscal year 2022. They actually replaced it with Battlefield 5, so they didn't actually list it in their little presentation of active games, which is
rough.
That's quite a big deal, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and massively disappointing because Battlefield's one of my favourite sort of franchises as well. I've played a tremendous amount of Battlefield 3, 4, originally 1, and previous titles as well. So yeah, Rip Snorter's right. Yeah, they murdered our boy. They absolutely did. So you've got DICE that's coming off one of their worst critically received games ever. You've got obviously they acquired Codemasters. I believe they've merged Criterion Games with another studio to work on Need for Speed.
Okay.
BioWare, coming off the back of pretty much 2 flops back to back. They've obviously got a couple of games in Dragon Age and Mass Effect in production at the moment, but what are those games going to look like? The last Mass Effect, unfortunately, excluding the Legendary Edition, wasn't really up to much, and obviously they had Anthem as well. So that's a studio certainly on the decline, or who really needs to prove themselves with their next title. And then that kind of gets into the topic of, right, would Xbox even be interested in the first place? They don't need a racing game or racing studios. No. They don't need shooters, especially if they've got Call of Duty. I prefer Battlefield to Call of Duty, but there's no arguing that Call of Duty is the bigger of the 2 franchises, regardless of the most recent titles. I guess the jewel in the crown of EA is Respawn. And I still think Respawn is up there with Insomniac as one of the biggest deals or best deals that a company has done. I think it was only a couple of $100 million, which obviously is a significant amount of money, but I think in the grand scheme of things will prove to be an absolute bargain for them. But again, what are Respawn known for? First-person shooters and the Star Wars games. So the first-person shooters Microsoft they've got, especially when Activision Blizzard comes on board. And obviously the Star Wars games are great. I really, really enjoyed Jedi Fallen Order. I'm looking forward to the second one. But then you've got a licensing issue with Disney for Star Wars, as you mentioned. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to see how that one goes.
Do you think they came to the party a little bit too late? All of these deals have happened. Activision, Bungie, everyone's got their teeth into some deals at the moment, and all of a sudden EA have turned up an hour late at the party. And everyone's sort of busy with someone else.
Yeah, everyone's already pissed.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just turned up. Maybe, but I guess it depends on what's triggered it. Was it the actual announcement of the Activision Blizzard deal that maybe made them think? Is it just something that's naturally occurred irrespective of that, and it's just a coincidence? It's happened afterwards. I guess we'll never know. But I don't think it changes much, because I think even if EA were doing this earlier in the let's say before all these acquisitions started, or the big acquisitions started, do you think Sony or Xbox would have been interested then?
Yeah, good question.
And I would probably argue not.
Yeah,
and
I'd
therefore
argue not, just about.
the companies that they'll be speaking to are probably the same now as they would have been 2-3 years ago when all these things started off. So it probably doesn't change an awful lot for them. And like I say, I think it's telling as to the companies which have been named that they've allegedly had these discussions with.
It's interesting that they've put and other companies, but not actually disclosed who they are. I'm guessing, I don't know. I mean, there was lots of talk around, should Xbox buy Ubisoft and things like that, and actually, no is the answer to that one. I think obviously Activision makes much more sense than them buying an EA or an Ubisoft, particularly financially. We've got a few comments in the chat, Scott. Should we just have a quick run through? What have we got?
Of course. So we have one from Pyro here. So welcome to the chat, Pyro. Great to see you here, mate. He says, I hate to think how bad a Tencent owned EA could be for mobile games like microtransactions, which, you combine EA's history with MTX along with Tencent's mobile strategy, and maybe you've got a recipe for disaster there. Or from a financial perspective, maybe a recipe for an absolute shit ton of money.
Yeah, potentially.
Pyro says he bids $12. $12
$12 for EA. Well, I'll stretch to 13.
That's one on the. And Ripsaw did ask, do we know how much they're worth? And as I said, Ripsaw, last time I looked, I think they were $35 billion market cap. So make of that what you will in terms of how much that would actually cost them. Stubbs Gaming says EA are making money. Sorry, EA are money making standpoint. They make billions from FIFA. There won't be any difference they would spend in brand awareness. The change won't impact that much, which I think is fair.
I don't know. I think it will. I think the whole lack of FIFA thing. One of the things Pro Evo was always sort of slated for was sort of, I can't remember what they called it now. Some of the team names that they had, like London FC instead of Arsenal and stuff.
That's a really important thing, Flap. Just to make it clear, they've lost the FIFA branding from the title, but they keep all of the licensing in terms of team names, player names, because they're different licenses that they have.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
one of them's like. I think one's like FIPOL or FIFPOL or something like that, which is like the players. Right. So the FIFA branding was purely for FIFA in the name of the game, as I understand it. So EA Sports FC will still have all the team names. They will still have all the player names, image rights, and things like that, I believe. Yeah. So it's purely just on the brand of the name. And like I said, I think Stubbs is probably right, but I think it does depend on whether another FIFA game comes on the market from another company. If it does, then they might have an issue. If it doesn't, well, then people are probably still going to recognize EA as a brand over Konami these days. Imagine
that game actually getting the FIFA license to be able to use it in their title, but not actually get the license for all of the players, the stadiums, and things like that.
Yeah,
that would be very odd, wouldn't it?
I don't know whether there would be any. I don't know whether there would be issues with another company getting the FIFA branding and then also licensing the player names and likeness and things like that. But what you're talking about there, Flap, is an absolute shit ton of money. That is Konami going to be interested in paying that, considering they've gone down with the eFootball and the free-to-play model? Or is it going to be like another sort of late comment of the party, like say like Take-Two and another obviously company that's interested in sports games? Maybe they jump into it, but again, that's a significant amount of money. So I think if FIFA want to do that, they're probably going to have to lower the price firstly, and I think what that means is we're unlikely to have a FIFA game on the market by the time EA Sports FC comes out, and therefore EA are probably not going to have too many issues. That's how I would envisage it going, but we'll obviously have to wait and see.
Okay, doke. Where did we get with the chat?
So we got one from Ripsnot that I mentioned earlier that they murdered my board Battlefield, absolutely. As I tweeted this just a couple of weeks ago, that I said that's probably my biggest disappointment in gaming history ever. I genuinely kind of think of a game that's disappointed me more than Battlefield 2042.
Wow. That's saying something,
because I was so unbelievably excited for it, and then what came out.
That's in a world where Cyberpunk exists as well. Wow.
It's way beyond Cyberpunk Battlefield 2042 for me, absolutely. And then another comment here from Stubbs that says, I think they're just firing shots in the air and see who's interested. Yeah. They could be. I imagine if they're looking to be acquired or merge, they'll be standing out as many companies. I guess, unfortunately, from their perspective, that there's a limited pool of companies who can afford such a deal, but they'll be standing out pretty much all of them to see who's interested. And obviously, if multiple people are interested, who's going to pay the most?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we're going to round the topic up there. And thank you very much, Scott, and thank you very much, chat, for that. Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's many facets to the EA one. Like I say, they're not perhaps quite the studio they once were. They are starting to lose a few licensing deals. Like you say, perhaps it's no big deal. I'm sure they'll bounce back. That's not going to be the end of EA, let's face it. But like I say, I kind of feel they might have joined the party a little bit late on this one, and everyone's busy with someone else at this moment in time. So, like you say, that does perhaps leave the door open for the likes of Disney, Amazon and Apple potentially, even though that doesn't look like they were that interested in taking a bite. But perhaps the price was wrong.
Yeah.
Perhaps if they can readjust, don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll move on to topic 2. So thank you very much. Like I say, thank you, chat. And topic 2, Xbox doing well in Japan for once. Well, since 2014. This week's been reported that the Xbox, or more specifically the Series S, has outsold the PlayStation 5 in Japan for, I think it was towards the tail, I think it was 9th to the 19th of May, something like that, some reporting period. Series S sold 6,210, PS5, both units combined, disc, non-disc, 2,963. And Xbox have already surpassed in Japan their total sales than they did for the entire Xbox One generation, which in itself is quite an amazing feat. I think...
maybe on that point, maybe not. Just because of how badly the Xbox One sold, I don't think that's much of an achievement.
But I mean, the Xbox One still sold fairly well in certain territories and markets and stuff. Obviously, UK and America being a couple of those, not so much in Europe.
Yes.
So it did kind of still sell, but I think it was a real litmus test in Japan, just how bad it was, wasn't it? With how badly they actually did in Japan. It was a real magnifying glass on the problem. And I think we have to say that, the fact that Series S outsold PlayStation 5 is likely to be down to stock shortages for PlayStation. So it's not necessarily an even playing field, so we'll have to disclose that. And also, PlayStation 5's lifetime sales in Japan are around 1.6 million, which outstrips sales of Xbox in Japan by quite a long way, to be honest. But it's still an interesting sort of little quirk, really. And I think it also highlights the actual console that's selling really well is the Series S. That's quite an interesting aspect to it, Scott. I mean, how vital is the Series S to the Xbox plans? And not just in Japan, but globally. But it does seem to be like Japan is the sort of the hotspot for kind of seeing these issues up close and how well things do or don't do. Yeah,
I mean, it's obviously proven to be the right move for Xbox. I think is fair to say at this point. We're now 18 months into the generation, and I think it's obvious that it was a smart play by Microsoft to go with the two-tiered approach. I guess the issue of whether it's holding back next gen is an entirely different conversation. So we'll leave that to one side for the purpose of this conversation. But I think purely from a business perspective, it's worked out well. Whether they planned it or knew it or not, I think it certainly helped with production in this world where chips are difficult to get a hold of. And I think that's one of the contributing factors here is it's easier to produce Series S consoles than it is X consoles or PS5 consoles, obviously. And therefore that's allowing them to get stock on shelves, whether that be in Japan or other markets. And I've got one sitting right next to me here, and it's a bloody great little device. I absolutely love it. I just think it's proved to be a smart move, especially in territories where they're maybe not as big, because it gives people a lower barrier of entry into the Xbox ecosystem, especially when you combine it with Game Pass. Not only that, I think it's also a good complementary system to customers who own other consoles. So if you've got a PS5 or a Switch and you're just interested in Xbox or Game Pass, you can get a much cheaper, a much lower barrier to entry console into the Xbox ecosystem, which I think is going to entice a lot of people to have multiple consoles this generation, or multiple consoles from different manufacturers. And the sales stuff, it's a little bit of fun. It was just nice to see that too, because as you say, Flap, it's obviously down to stock issues. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. I think the PS5 sold like 2.5K in terms of units, and the Series S was like 6K by itself. Still dwarfed by the Nintendo Switch, which was much more than both of them combined. But it was just a little bit of fun just to say that, because I think if you asked anybody and you said, will the Xbox outsell the PlayStation in Japan at any point in this generation, you're going to say no, aren't you? No one's going to say, oh yeah, it will for whatever reason. And the chip shortage has just kind of thrown a little bit of a curveball into that equation. And it's just a little bit of fun, but it does show that Microsoft is making improvements in Japan. They've already outsold the Xbox One generation. They're still a little bit or way behind the 360, I believe, at the moment. But they're certainly making strides. And I think the Series X is a massive contributor to that, especially if you look at the overall sales of the X and S in Japan. It certainly shows that the S has proven to be the more popular of the two in that particular market.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it? Because obviously they have a much higher yield on the silicon and the chips that are coming out there. And like you say, that's probably more by accident than design, I guess, because I think obviously during the inception of the Series S, that the chip shortages hadn't really even begun at that point. So like I say, it's probably more by accident than by design, but what a fantastic move that was to do that. There's a comment here from thegamer.com, and perhaps you may have answered it. I was going to kind of contradict this, but perhaps you may have answered that. Thegamer.com, the Xbox Series X's paltry sales indicate that Japan much prefers the smaller Xbox Series S, perhaps due to a lack of 4K TVs in Japan, or because Japanese customers prefer its compact and cute design. I was thinking, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then you think, well, hang on a minute, the size of the PS5 is gargantuan compared to the Series S, but perhaps it's not really about that. Perhaps it's more to do with their console preference, and their console preference may likely be PlayStation, so they will suck up the size of the huge PlayStation. But like you say, actually as a second console, they don't want another one that's the Series X that's huge. They will go for the smaller one. And again, this is more. I don't know if that was by design or accident, perhaps by Xbox. Probably a little bit more by design. I mean, I think we said early on that the Series S always felt like it was an entry point for non-Xbox gamers to get into the Xbox ecosystem. And like I say, what better place to demonstrate that than an entire market like Japan? And like you say, I know that the sales of PS5s are down, probably due to the chip shortages. Fair enough. But it does also go to demonstrate that Microsoft's original plan is a good one and that it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm obviously not too familiar with the uptake on certain technology in Japan, like 4K TVs. If that happens to be true, that is an interesting proposition. Obviously, on the PlayStation side, you don't have a choice between a smaller and a bigger console. So if you want a PlayStation, which I imagine a lot of Japanese consumers do, because it's a Japanese brand, it has a lot of Japanese games, then you don't have a choice. You've got to buy the big beefy console that they've got. But on the flip side, I know we're talking specifically about Xbox and PlayStation here, Flat. The Switch has just been an absolute monumental success in Japan. It's outrageous how big that's been.
Can I just mention
what's that going for it?
For the same time period that these sales numbers were discussed, the top 10, all 10 best-selling games software were all Nintendo. Every single one of the top 10.
So obviously portable and mobile gaming and portable gaming is obviously huge in that part of the world. I think there was actually a comment from, I believe it was Stubbs. Yeah, Stubbs Gaming says the smartest play in Japan is mobile and tablet. And yeah, I guess that's obviously one of the reasons why Microsoft is pushing game streaming, because there are markets that prefer mobile, and game streaming is a way to actually penetrate those markets without necessarily having to sell consoles. If they get Game Pass subscriptions in those markets for mobile devices, they'd happily take that over console sales, I'm sure. Obviously, they would like both, but the Game Pass subscription side of things is probably more important to them in those particular markets. But yeah, the Switch is just outselling even the PlayStation 5 by an absolute huge margin. And again, that's got size and portability on it. And PlayStation is, I think from, I guess, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but they're increasingly becoming less reliant on that market and becoming more reliant on the Western market compared to the Japanese market because of that shift towards mobile and portable gaming. So they're still going to do well because of the games that they have on their console, but it seems like it's just a market that's dominated by mobile and Nintendo at this point. And even though PlayStation are doing better than Xbox, they're still way, way off Nintendo at this point in that market.
But you should say that I saw a few of those sort of comments pop up as well as a criticism, really, of Sony, saying, well, actually, you know, they're actually concentrating a lot more on Western markets. Are they starting to lose touch with their sort of home base, as it were, in Japan? So it's an interesting topic. How much of a factor, and you did kind of touch on this, how much of a factor in Japan do you think is Game Pass? Is that having some influence on some of the decisions that are being made to purchase, you know, an Xbox console this time around?
I honestly don't think so at this point, Flap. Main reason because there's not an awful lot of content catered towards that particular market on there. They obviously did have that deal that brought the likes of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy on there. They had Scarlet Nexus, which is a game for that market. Yeah, they've got Yakuza. The only thing with those games are they're synonymous with other brands. They came to the service late, so it's not like they launched in that particular service. And they're still having a content issue in Japan in terms of getting. Final Fantasy 16 is a perfect example. Final Fantasy 7 Remake. These are games that are catered towards those markets in a lot of cases. How many times have we spoke about Persona, Flap? Is Persona going to come to Xbox?
And that is still a question mark that's hanging in the air.
Still is, yeah. It was a big deal when Dragon Quest came over. It was a big deal way back when Final Fantasy came onto the Xbox, but they still got a content issue for that market. So I suspect that Game Pass, I won't say it's not having an impact, because I imagine it is, because there will be consumers in that market that don't necessarily just want Japanese games, because if they did, they would probably be buying other consoles. Exactly. Maybe those who are interested in other titles would pick no Game Pass. But I think if they really wanted to make a bit of a splash, they need to get exclusive content from Japanese creators. The reason the 360 was... I use successful in the context of the Xbox brand, not in context of the other brands. But the reason the 360 was successful is because they had exclusive content from Japanese developers. Obviously, the big two that you'll always hear talked about are Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. Both very, very good JRPGs. I really, really enjoyed both of them. And they were exclusive. And that would have helped massively, and they haven't got that. They didn't have that last generation, and they don't have this this generation just yet either. So they really need to focus on getting more Japanese developers releasing their games on Xbox, not necessarily exclusively, because the problem is these developers are skipping the Xbox in some cases now. Again, Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Remake being two very high profile examples, but just getting them on that console, and then if they can start trying to get some exclusive content that they can put in Game Pass, that would allow them to really push that service.
Do you think do you think with the upcoming game showcase there should be an element of looking at the Japanese market, and like you say, there seems to be a distinct lack of JRPGs and stuff on there. I know it was part of the Bethesda acquisition, we got Tango Gameworks and stuff, but that's hardly going to be enough to win over the Japanese market. Do you know what I mean? It's are they doing enough, and do you think they're still trying to heavily pursue that market?
I still think, to answer the last question first, I think they're still pushing. I still think they're trying. I think it's just difficult for them at the moment. I can't remember the exact person or the job role, but I believe it was not too long ago. There was a tweet by somebody who was hired specifically for Xbox game publishing in Japan, who tweeted about, I think they were hiring for more people to work for Xbox in Japan, to work with, I can't remember the terminology that they used. If anyone chat can remember the tweet, please get it up. It was something like working with on groundbreaking games in Japan or something along those lines. Some people thought that might be hinted towards like Kojima Productions game that they've been rumored to be working on. So I still think, yes, they're still focused on it. I still think they're trying. Whether it's enough is another matter entirely. I'd say maybe at this moment in time, probably not. And if we'll see anything in June, what do you think, Flap? Do you think we're going to see Final Fantasy VII Remake, Persona 5? Do you think we're going to see these games coming to Xbox in June?
I don't, if I'm honest, I don't think we are. But it also kind of feeds into that, if we don't see those, are they going to do something, or have they managed to bag some sort of game that they can sort of flag up as a victory when it comes to sort of appeasing the Japanese markets, but also obviously the Western markets that like all of the Japanese games as well. I think Persona would be a big get, and I think they'd capitalise on that. But I can't see it happening, if I'm honest.
But again, if it's Persona 5, I imagine it would be Persona 5 Royal, Flap. It's a bit late, isn't it? People who want to play that game probably already own a PlayStation.
Exactly. And it's the same with the Yakuzas, I guess, all the way up to Like a Dragon, I suppose, in some regards. But funny you should say about the Kojima Productions, because obviously, again, in our Discord, and again, link in the description below, please join the Discord because these conversations carry on. So don't be shy, come and join. But you mentioned that obviously Kojima Productions are potentially working on a sequel to Death Stranding. I was going to say Death Stranding 2. Unlikely to be called that, I guess. But so does that, if that's true, and it came from the voice actor, I can't remember his name, and it came from the voice actor,
Norman
didn't it?
Reedus.
That's it. He kind of leaked it out. Does that then mean that the rumours of a Kojima game coming to Xbox are kind of quashed at this point, do you think? Because I think that,
maybe,
if that was real, if the Kojima Xbox collaboration was real, that would be the thing to show at the Xbox game, showcase.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think if that's real, and I guess it's probably fair by saying that the rumors only come from Jeff Grubb, and it's meant to be a cloud-focused game. And the last he spoke about it, as far as I'm aware, he said it was still sort of in the legal discussions. So there's a couple of things there. Is if it's real and they've managed to get the deal signed, then I think announcing that in the June showcase would be massive. But, and we've had this discussion in the past, Flap, the game's probably still 4 or 5 years away, probably, if that's the case, if it's still at that stage.
But
and we've
Xbox,
had this discussion around Xbox announcing things too soon.
I was going to say, they're not shy of actually, waving the flag when they're still 5 years out, are they? So
true. But at the same time, they've been criticised for that quite heavily, haven't they? So, and Death Stranding 2, if it is in production, I mean, if this Xbox deal isn't done, then they're going to be working on something else, and there's no reason why they couldn't work on multiple projects at the same time. I'm not too sure the size of the team there at the moment. And Ash Reviews Games has just said that Rita said we're just starting it or something like that. So that would, if they've literally just started it, then that might indicate that they've been working on something else since Death Stranding. So. But what that is, we obviously we don't know. Hopefully we'll find out in June, because I think, I'll be honest, I'm really not a fan of Kojima's games at all. I'm not a big fan of Metal Gear. I thought Death Stranding looked like the most boring game ever, but I couldn't deny the how big a deal that would be if they got exclusive content from him. Like, regardless of how I feel about his games, I think that would be a massive deal.
It's quite strange, right? Because when PlayStation announced their first-party titles line up for the new Project Spartacus project, now known as PlayStation Plus, with 3 different tiers, I was quite surprised that, when I saw Returnal, I thought, oh, brilliant, Returnal. I will be able to play a game that Luke highly recommends. Demon's Souls. I was thinking, right, I've turned into a bit of a Dark Souls geek, so I can get my teeth into that. Loved Elden Ring, Dark Souls 3, you name it. And then Death Stranding was on there, and I'm thinking, Death Stranding, I suppose I can give that a go, but I was not excited for it whatsoever. And I having not played the game, I feel exactly the same way as you about it, Scott. It's a bit, okay, well, I'll give it a go. It seems strange that they had both the Death Stranding and the Death Stranding director's cut. It's like, you'd just have the director's cut, wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Why would
is the director's cut only on PS5?
I don't
and
know.
The original's on PS4.
As I was saying that, I'm wondering if they're on different platforms. I don't know off the top of my head. I know Spider-Man was PS4 only. You didn't get the PS5 patch for Spider-Man, but you did for Miles Morales, which I thought there's some really odd decisions in that list when you start drilling into the details. Anyway, that's a different topic. Where are we with the chat, Scott?
Yeah, so in the chat, so we have comment here from, actually, just before going to that, obviously there's a few people in there, so just maybe to give a couple of shout outs. We got Ash, Stubbs, Pyro, Parksy's joined, UK Dazras has just joined there as well, Smitty Smith, Rip Snorter is in there as well, so thank you all very much for joining this morning. Obviously just a nice casual chat of games on a Sunday. Appreciate you all being here. So into the comments, we got Stubbs, he says they need more RPGs, new stuff for the Asian market, as most Japanese games on Game Pass is old to them, and all new JRPG games for the Japanese market. So yeah, I think I agree entirely. I think that's more or less what I said. They need new stuff because the stuff that they are getting is old for a lot of those people. Another one from Pyro here, he says, I feel the xCloud streaming is a plus, drawing the audience through this tech heavy areas, leading to bring people into the ecosystem, the Series S being a next step of progression. And then Stubbs says, yeah, that's true, but Game Pass has no new Japanese-based games, which kind of leading on to his first comment, I think is absolutely fair. Another comment here from Parksy, who says, Like a Dragon launched on Xbox, and I believe MS had the marketing. I think Kojima game, if the rumors are true, could get a lot of Japanese gamers interested. So Like a Dragon was an interesting one. I really, really enjoyed that game. The interesting thing is, though, it was released on Xbox Series X exclusively, but it was also on PlayStation 4 as well. So it was on PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. The PS5 version came a little bit later, which was a little unusual. So it was only the next gen version that was exclusive for a very short period of time. And then it didn't come to Game Pass until a couple of months later, if I remember rightly. I think it was like January or February or something. It came into Game Pass, and it was released kind of like November time or something like that. So it was still available on other markets, and it didn't launch in Game Pass, which is, if that's what they want to do, they probably want to get that in there for launch. And then one from Pyro here says, I think Soul Hackers 2 might skip the scale one way or the other for Atlas on the decision to port the other games. Have you heard of Soul Hackers 2, Flap?
No, never.
So I'm actually really, really looking forward to this game, to be honest. It's a JRPG from Atlas. The original game, I believe, was a 3DS title. Soul Hackers. If you look at a trailer for it, it's very Atlas. It's you can tell by the art style. It's got similarities with Persona. I believe that's coming out in August, and that's an Xbox game from Atlas that's launching on Xbox at the same time as PlayStation. So I'm definitely going to be picking that up, Pyro. I'm really looking forward to it. It looks great. And yeah, he's maybe right. Maybe they'll look at the sales of Soul Hackers. If it does well, maybe that'll encourage them to release more games. If it doesn't, then I think they're probably within their rights to skip the console. If people aren't buying these types of games on Xbox, then why would you put the time and effort into releasing it? But at the same time, it is a bit of a double-edged sword, because if you don't release games on Xbox for that market, then why would people buy the one and only one that comes? I think and that's where Microsoft comes in. That's where Microsoft needs to secure this content for the platform and for Game Pass, to start generating excitement around those types of games and building an audience for those types of games on their platform. So, yeah. I think
Absolutely.
That's it for the chat, Flap.
Yeah, no, fair enough, and that kind of nicely rounds up that topic. So thank you, chat, for getting involved in that one, and we'll move on to topic 3, our closing topic for today. And this one is around the Sony Call of Duty marketing rights. There was a Idle Sloth, second time we've mentioned that name in the last couple of shows. He tweeted a photo of what looked to be a Sony exec. I think it was a company strategy meeting, and standing in front of a large screen showing all of the current PlayStation marketing deals. And they had FIFA on there, GTA, Hogwarts Legacy, all of those sort of games. But there was one notable omission, and that was Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2. Now, I know in our Discord, and again, shameless plug, link down below, we did sort of think, well, this kind of doesn't look right. It kind of looks a bit fake, the photo itself. But lots and lots of websites and outlets have run with this story. And when you think about it, it actually starts making a little bit of sense. With the potential of the Activision and Xbox deal going through, would Sony actually want the marketing rights for Call of Duty, potentially advertising a big game like that will not be, be owned or potentially sat with them on some level going forwards? What do you think, Scott? Do you still think this is a fake story, or do you think there are some legs in it potentially?
I think it's at the very least the image is maybe slightly misleading. I still don't actually know where this slide come from. I know that Stubbs just mentioned in the chat there that Sloth might have made a fake image. I don't necessarily think he's made this image. Maybe he's got it from somewhere else and has posted it. But I've not been able to find a source for this image when I've looked. And it's just one slide. If this is a real image, who's to say there isn't a second slide that contains other games with Call of Duty listed on them? So the question is, first of all, is the image real? Secondly, what's the context of the image? And is there any other images that might have gone alongside it? And the reason that it stood out that was a little bit unusual is the titles that are listed in there. They've got games that have been released, games that haven't been released. They list FIFA as just FIFA, not FIFA 22, FIFA 23 or whatever, just FIFA. And there was other games in there that we haven't really heard anything about. Like, for example, Avatar, we've seen very, very little of that. Ghostwire, Deathloop, Grand Theft Auto 5, NBA, those are games that have already been released. So the image itself is a little unusual. And I think they do still have the marketing rights for Call of Duty. I've got no reason to suspect otherwise. And I think even if they were worried about Xbox owning Activision Blizzard, that's not going to stop them from doing that, because Call of Duty is bloody massive. They want that brand associated with PlayStation, and based on the comments that we've seen since the acquisition was announced, it does seem like Call of Duty is going to continue to be on PlayStation. The marketing rights may not sit with PlayStation for much longer, but I imagine they're going to want to continue to capitalize on that.
Yeah, well, like you say, there's lots of people are running with this story, and I've got to be honest, I kind of sat on the fence really. I really don't quite know what to make of it, because, like you say, it could very easily be, like you say, either a faked image or an image certainly out of context. That's for sure. But on the other hand, it's kind of, I don't know if Sony would want to pursue a Call of Duty marketing. Like you say, I know it's probably already set in stone, and if PlayStation were to drop the Call of Duty marketing rights, then there would probably be a financial penalty on some side. I'm guessing the Activision side potentially. They'd have to pay them off to not be there. Perhaps Microsoft have opted to buy them out of that, and that we may see the marketing deal switch back to Xbox come this showcase in June. It would be interesting to see. I mean, it's not like Microsoft don't have the money. I guess the only factor around that is that obviously, the Activision Blizzard deal isn't a done deal with Xbox, and there is still a potential that it could fall through the crack, although it looks unlikely. I think it's unlikely the Activision deal will fall through. And the reason I say that is because obviously Microsoft have done their due diligence and think they can get it through as well. So I will bow to their legal team to make sure that they can get it through. But it does make you wonder if they are super confident this deal will go through, that Microsoft might actually say, "All right, well, we'll pay you off. We'll buy that off of you, and we'll start pushing it as part of the Xbox branding come the June showcase." Perhaps, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I'm on the fence with it.
Yeah. I guess would Xbox even be able to do that though? Because they don't own Activision Blizzard, they cannot get involved legally in any of the running. So this decision would have to be between PlayStation and Activision. And I'm sorry, Parksy's just mentioned there. He says, "Hear me out. What if Sony had a contract with Activision for the marketing of CoD, but it's coming up to the time of the year that Sony has to pay the check, and Sony have a time break in the contract." Maybe. I'd still say that was unlikely, because I would think of it. Why would PlayStation want to get out of it? There's you want to Modern Warfare 2 that's coming this year is going to be massive. Yeah. I don't see why they would want to get out of that contract, especially when they know that contract is probably the last marketing contract they will get, because when it's acquired, the games might still be on PlayStation, but they're not going to have the marketing rights anymore because Microsoft will own them at that point. They're going to want to milk that marketing contract for as much as they can. It just doesn't make sense for them to do it. So like I say, I think this image is at worst is fake, at best is just lacking context, or like I said, we don't even know where it bloody came from. It could have been Call of Duty had its own slide where it was like Call of Duty, Call of Duty, because of how big it is, So I would like to. I have looked. I would like to try and find out where it came from. So if anyone has any idea where it came from, please let me know.
Well, there is,
because I would like to find out.
There is more fuel to the fire, because I've heard several times that the marketing rights can cost 300 million. That seems a lot for marketing rights on that, but. Sony have also just managed to free up 300 million recently, if you remember, in one of their calls. Is that the same 300 million that they haven't spent on the marketing rights this year round? Are they going to rejig that 300 million into potential acquisitions and stuff? Don't know. It's just a bit of a coincidence that there's two lots of 300 million. But
where did they get 300 million from? Sorry, I missed that.
It was, I think it was in a finance call. It was funny enough. It was on Stubbs' show. Stubbs covered this as a topic.
Okay.
I think there's an extra 300 million floating around. It just makes me wonder if it's come from the deal of not signing up for the marketing deal. But we'll find out probably soon enough, I guess. It's going to be an interesting few months, to be honest. There's lots of things going on. There's never a dull moment in this kind of in this hobby of ours.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, we'll find out soon enough. Modern Warfare 2 is going to be announced in the next couple of months, and if we see a big PlayStation logo at the end or the beginning of that trailer, we know that they've still got it. So we won't have too long to wait, I suspect. When do you think Modern Warfare 2 is going to show up, Flap?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we're going to start seeing more about it, because that's the thing. Everyone will be looking for sort of. On the platform holders, who's going to be pushing that, I suppose. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it would be too far off before we start seeing and hearing more about it.
Do you think Summer Games Fest?
Probably.
Could Keighley have banned Call of Duty?
They did a big Vanguard thing last time, didn't they? Do you remember? They did a big sort of 10-minute gameplay walkthrough. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Now, I like Call of Duty, and for me, that was actually a low moment of the entire show, because I thought it was a bit boring. It was a bit, I'd rather see a little bit more multiplayer gameplay. It's a bit more fun. It's a bit more action packed. So perhaps they'll be there again this year. Perhaps the Summer Game Fest. In the next few months, we should be able to find out a little bit more about that. But it'd just be interesting to see when. Let's assume Sony still have the marketing rights, when they're actually going to start pushing that, if that makes sense. I guess they won't do it until there's more details around the game. But like you say, it does seem a bit silly that if they were to drop the marketing rights this year, because this is going to be the largest Call of Duty for quite a number of years. So like you say, the timing alone should pretty much dictate that they're not going to drop the marketing rights if they've already got them. Yeah. Like you say, for that alone, I guess.
This might be the one card that actually has me even remotely interested, Flap.
Really?
Because Modern Warfare 2 was the last Call of Duty game I properly played. I loved the original Modern Warfare 2 on the 360. So if there's one game that'll get me back, it might be this one. So yeah, we'll obviously find out soon. Summer Games Fest seems maybe about right. I imagine what they might do is announce it themselves and then have a little bit of a segment on in the Summer Games Fest. I think that's what they did last year. But yeah, we'll obviously just have to have our eyes peeled for whatever platform holder logo appears on it. But Stubbs has just put in the chat there that he thinks PlayStation start marketing rats, and I think I'd agree. I don't think this image is evidence that anything's changed there, to be perfectly honest.
And to be honest, that's a second post tweet from Idle Sloth. Not that we're calling him out as a tweeter or sort of a content sharer as being malicious, like you say, Scott. I think he just posts what he finds, and if someone's put a fake image together and left it on the desk ready for him to find, shall we say, then he's just posted what he's found, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything nefarious about that. I think I don't think Idle Sloth's someone that claims to have insider knowledge or anything like that. I think he's more of like an aggregator. He just posts everything from a wide variety of sources. What that means is that there's a wide variety of quality, I guess, or maybe truthfulness to a lot of these posts, and everything, things like that. Take with a pinch of salt, and you can never be disappointed. So yeah, but I think I would just like to make it clear, I don't think he's done anything wrong or he's doing this on purpose. I think he's just seen an image or someone's sent him an image and he's retweeted it because that's that's his thing. He just posts bloody everything. So.
And to be honest, even if it is bollocks, even if it's not true, it does open up the conversation and gets us thinking around how it all works in the first place. And like you say, it just doesn't make sense for them to actually drop it at this particular time with this particular Call of Duty. It just doesn't make sense. So if they do drop it, then it will be an absolute wow, that was real. But we'll find out in the next few months. So just want to round up.
And they're not going to have it for too much longer.
No, exactly. Like you say, this will be the last one, absolutely, as long as the deal goes through. And like I say, I will have to side with Microsoft. I'm sure they've done their due diligence. I think it's more likely to go through than not, but it's not done until it's done, until that signature's on the page. Yeah. So, where are we with the chat, just quickly?
Yeah, so a couple of comments on this. So Ash says, I can see Sony still having the marketing deals with CoD for the next game at least, and then anything after that will clearly have marketing pushed more on Xbox. Yeah, I think that's fair, particularly Game Pass. Call of Duty and Game Pass is going to be a big deal. Parksy says, touching on the $300 million thing, he says, I've heard that they've exercised the right to get out the contract. I heard on another podcast over the weekend that Sony paid $300 million per year for the marketing rights.
That was on Boom's show.
Amount of money,
that was on Boom's show. Now, I tried finding where that number came from, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So, we could be joining dots that just don't exist, in all honesty, and don't be under any illusion. People on podcasts, unless they claim to be insiders, it's all just opinion and speculation. As it is on this show, we clearly have no inside knowledge with these sort of things, and I would encourage that 99% of every other podcast and person that you hear talking on podcasts are in the same boat. There's the odd one, Jez Corden can leak stuff. There's a few people out there that do have some insider knowledge, but to be honest, the ones that do tend to hang on to it. So,
yeah, exactly. They don't want to say it on a podcast. Jez Corden will always say when he's got proof, he'll write an article because that's his job, to drive traffic to his website. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think with anything, it's important to say when we're discussing these things, a lot of it's speculation, a lot of it's opinion. We're just discussing the possibilities of these things happening. It's a bit of fun.
And to be honest, that's why any topic is open game, because, like you say, most of these topics, we're not suggesting this is actual fact or this is going to happen. We're just exploring some of the possibilities around some of these, wild rumors actually being true. And sometimes they are. Sometimes these wild rumors that everyone says, no, that's never going to happen. It does. Who in their right mind would have ever thought Xbox buying Bethesda, let alone Activision? Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of where we are in this hobby.
Exactly. Got a couple more comments here from Ash, who says COD sales are incredible regardless of the platform. Sony won't get out of any contract with COD. They will happily welcome it for as long as they can. Yeah, I think that's fair. Ash also says that I could see COD being in late October this year. And then just one that I've just seen from Stubbs there as well, who says, I thought they extended for at least 3 years per time. I don't think they signed them yearly. So yeah, I think the deal is kind of like, right, we've got COD for the next 3, 4, 5 titles, not just annual, which
300
I think
million
is
for
right.
1 year marketing sounds like a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about EA and FIFA. Apparently, the EA deal, the reason they got out is because FIFA wanted 1 billion for 4 years. This would make Call of Duty marketing rights more expensive than FIFA
exactly.
for FIFA brand over the same period. So we'll have to see. But I think that whole marketing thing was one of the reasons that people were pretty confident that Call of Duty would continue to go on PlayStation for at least 2 or 3 years, because apparently, and I did see this comment chat. Apologies, I can't see it. Someone did post it though, that Sony may have renewed that particular marketing agreement just before the deal was announced, which would mean that this year's, next year's, and possibly even the years after would have Sony marketing, therefore would have to appear on PlayStation regardless of what Xbox wanted to do. But we'll have to wait and see for those
I
things.
think Xbox would then buy them out of that marketing deal once the Activision deal's gone through, though, wouldn't they?
I don't. Do you think the same Microsoft that let Bethesda release exclusive games on PlayStation? I know they're different agreements,
yeah,
but
when you
they've
say
been
let,
happy
was,
to honour agreements.
The ink had dried on that deal, whereas this one, I don't know. I think once Activision Blizzard deal is over the line, I don't think Xbox will want the Call of Duty branding to be associated with PlayStation in all of their showcase events going forwards. I think although Call of Duty will still be on PlayStation, I think Microsoft will still want to align the Call of Duty branding with Xbox, if that makes sense, just to get it in people's mindsets. I don't know. It's an interesting point.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out. I guess in the next 12 months or so, we'll probably figure it out, because the first thing is Call of Duty going to be in Game Pass? You know, we had this discussion about PS Plus versus Game Pass on Thursday's show, Flap. Just a little plug. Check that out if you haven't already, please. We kind of theorized that the agreements that PlayStation has might prevent games from appearing in Game Pass. So will the Call of Duty marketing agreement prevent Call of Duty being on Game Pass for the next 3 years, even after the agreement? Does that make Microsoft take some action?
Just as a late one, Stubbs has just put in, that looks aggressive from Microsoft if that happened. And he's talking about if Microsoft were to buy out the marketing rights. I don't think, I don't know if gamers would think like that. I don't think they think, oh, well, these marketing deals are, I think we may in this sphere that we're talking about, because we know how the kind of some of these deals works and stuff. But I think for the casual gamer, they're not going to think, oh, this is Microsoft strong arming Sony out of the way. I don't know if it quite works like that, particularly casual gamers, because I think, let's face it, the majority of COD players are probably considered casual gamers, so I don't know if they get as deeply involved into the back end side of things as we do. But yeah, it's
that's fair. I think though what Stubbs is saying is fair, where it's about being aggressive. I think that would maybe go against the image that Microsoft is trying to portray in public. And like I say, like a really aggressive Microsoft would have probably tried to get out of the contracts, especially when you consider their lineup for this year of Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo being exclusive to PlayStation. But they've been publicly happy to honor those agreements. So I suspect it'd be something similar here, I think.
Yeah,
but
no, I
we'll
agree.
obviously just have to wait and see.
Well, it's going to be interesting to find out, because, like I say, we don't know, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think there might be some surprises. Yeah, exactly. I think there might be some surprises coming, and we might even know something after the Xbox Game Showcase. If Call of Duty pops up there, I will be very surprised, to be honest. But
I agree.
Stranger things have happened. So, no, that's fantastic. We're going to wrap it up there, Scott, if you don't mind. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for looking after the chat. You've been fantastic as ever. Thank you so much for lobbing in grenades and stuff, challenging us, pushing us, pulling us. That's what it's all about. Like I say, we are not subject matter experts. We're here just to have the open discussion, conjecture, speculation, opinion. That's what this is all about. So thank you very much for being here, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Like I say, YouTube kind of screwed us over, if I'm completely honest, with Thursday's show. They pulled it off their platform for a bit, made the video private, as they did with many content creators. I think there was some talking about some aggressive bot that was obviously scanning videos and found something peculiar that just struck a load of videos. But it's back up now, so if you did miss that, I do urge you to check that out. Please, if you like the chat that you've had and the discussion, this does carry on pretty much 24/7. Join our Discord server. We're a friendly bunch. If you've never tried Discord before, I think lots of people are quite new to Discord. Just give it a go. Say hi in the chat. If you don't like it, then you don't have to stay. But it'd be good to see you there. Thank you very much. We're going to wrap the show up, Scott. We're going to try and come back with a Thursday show this week. Hopefully there's going to be some more news landing. If you're in the UK, enjoy this lovely weather that we're having on Sunday morning. Hope you enjoy whatever it is you're doing today. Safe gaming, and we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.